AITA for forcing my daughter to learn sign language? I, 49F, recently married my husband, 52M, who has a deaf 7-year-old daughter. She communicates solely via ASL. For some background, my daughter, 17F, is generally a very non-problematic teenager. She does amazing in school, and has never caused any problems other than regular teenage hormone stuff. However, she doesn't like my husband and stepdaughter. She is not outwardly rude, but basically ignores their existence. Skipped SD's birthday party. Doesn't engage in anything other than basic small talk with my husband. I did try to do family activities together to have the bond and all, but I stopped pushing it when it didn't happen, and as long as she's not being outwardly rude or harmful to them, I can't exactly punish her for not liking them. Now, since my relationship with my now husband started getting serious, I started taking ASL classes and am now basically as fluent as a hearing person can be. My daughter, however, never made an effort, which is okay since she technically has no responsibility towards her. However, recently my daughter has started watching SD, paid, when we aren't around, which changes things, in my opinion, since she is now spending time in which she is responsible for a young child. She needs to learn at least basic communication. When I brought it up to her, she outright refused to make any effort at all. I tried recommending YouTube videos, but she refused to try learning even a couple words, saying she's not responsible for my choice to be in the life of a disabled child. This issue has also been causing a lot of problems in my marriage. My husband confided in me that he's starting to feel uncomfortable with his young daughter living with someone who is so cold she refuses to make even the most basic effort or engage with her at all. He has brought up that he is considering divorce due to his concerns about how SD will be affected by this. So given all that, I had to finally put my foot down. I told my daughter that we have a disabled person living in our household for the foreseeable future, and if she wants to live here for college, graduating next month, she has to at least learn basic ASL. She doesn't have to like her stepfather and stepsister, nor does she have to hang out with them, but she has to have the ability to communicate with her for the sake of safety and basic decency. I made it clear that if she chooses not to, she is welcome to live in a dorm that I will pay for. It's just that living in our house, that is also my SD's house. My husband and I paid for the house equally. Comes with basic rules. Well, my daughter hasn't spoken to me for 7 days, so it's about time I ask. AITA? Info. Why does your daughter hate your husband? Info. When does she turn 18? He has brought up that he is considering divorce due to his concerns about how SD will be affected by this. I'm gonna divorce you unless you kick out your 17-year-old daughter or make her learn sign language, is an ugly ultimatum. YTA for having your daughter babysit when she won't learn ASL. That's ridiculous. Find someone else. I think you need to realize that, from your daughter's perspective, this relationship is still relatively new, and as a near adult she is less likely to see your stepdaughter as her stepsister. To her, you're changing the agreement her living at home for college. I don't think you're wrong ASL. TBH, it's a good to learn irrespective of living with someone who communicates this way. But you have some work to do here. You've moved people into her home that she doesn't like. This was always unlikely to go well. Info. How long did you date him before you got married and all moved in together, and is your daughter's father around? I just don't understand how you could have them move in knowing that your daughter is uncomfortable. Or has this behavior been going on for a while? Do you think your daughter wants to learn ASL from her stepsister? Except for your SD, because basic signs of communication should have been in place before they moved in. Accept the youngling. Your daughter is ta because she misplaces her frustration and emotional discomfort of your new marriage on her stepsister, the last person on earth who it should be put on. Maybe she even resents that you made her watch. Paid or not, your husband is ta because he threatens you with divorce over this. Instead of talking and asking your daughter how she feels, or consider a different babysitter, he pulls out the nuclear option to your relationship. You are ta because you throw your daughter under the bus for marriage's sake and threaten to kick her out instead of being a mother and trying to understand her and offer her a bailout, aka a different babysitter. Info. Has she been planning to live with you during college? Info. Why is your daughter watching your stepdaughter? Why don't you hire someone who already speaks ASL? What is the endgame you're seeing in all of this? Do you think punishing your daughter will improve the relationship with your stepdaughter? Daughter no longer watches stepdaughter. Problem solved. I don't think trying to force this is going to end well. I think it's NBD to learn a few basics in another language. But that's me. He has brought up that he is considering divorce due to his concerns about how SD will be affected by this. Maybe he should have thought about this, checked before marriage. Gonna go YTA. This isn't her marriage. Her stepdaughter. Her responsibility. Info. Why is the daughter watching SD? Is this a choice or are you forcing on her even if it is paid? What is the situation like with her father? Does she have a relationship with him? Were you with him before you were with current husband, or were you a single mother? I'm going to say not on the grounds of wanting your daughter to learn sign language, but because you're leaving her to care for a deaf child despite refusing to learn sign language. Your stepdaughter has a right not only to dignity but to be cared for by someone who can and will communicate in a way she understands. If your daughter doesn't offer that, she's not fit for the job. You can't make your daughter learn it, but you can take away things that you could only trust her with if she could. I won't pretend that your daughter isn't being unbelievably selfish and bratty. However, as an estranged adult child, I cannot help but feel that there's not enough asking of why here. I do not know for sure, but considering your daughter's age, I cannot rule out that she's scared that your stepdaughter will replace her in your heart. Is this rational? No, but it's worth remembering that you were her only adult in the world for the best part of 15 years. And just as she is about to reach the milestone of becoming an adult, a new man comes into your life with a child 10 years her junior who needs more care than she did. I think you need to talk to your daughter away from the steps about this. Explain to her that marrying your new husband or being a good mother figure for your stepdaughter doesn't replace her father or her. Make sure she feels, not just knows, that she is seen and supported. It's just that stepdaughter needs extra care because she's deaf and because she's younger and in a less independent stage of her life. By all means, encourage her to fly the nest, even if just temporarily. But remember this: it is not enough to love the young, but make sure they feel loved. John Bosco. ETA. For clarity, I don't think stepdaughter has a horse in the asshole race because she probably doesn't entirely understand what's going on here, due to age and daughter refusing to learn how to communicate with her. As for the husband threatening divorce over this, I feel mixed because on the one hand, punishing Op for the behavior of her daughter sucks, but I would expect him, given his circumstances, to put his child above a spouse. YTA for having presumably years to see your daughter doesn't consider your new family to be her family. She's allowed to be indifferent to what are essentially some random roommates you've decided to move in. Not everyone has the skill or time to learn a second language, and you've decided that in her senior year when she's busy with all that entails. She needs to learn an entirely new skill to satisfy these random roommates of yours. Otherwise you're permanently kicking her out of her home and your life. Get a whiteboard for them to communicate with each other in emergencies, and then deal with the fact you've done a terrible job blending these two families. Well, first off, natural logical consequence is that she can no longer watch her and therefore lose that money. Not being able to communicate is a safety concern for the lil one. Honestly, this is a tough situation. I understand your daughter, but I also understand you. I don't know what I would do in this situation. If she refuses to learn ASL, she will have to move to the dorms. In her mind, you are kicking her out and choosing your new family over her. This will definitely damage your relationship with your daughter, and it might even become irreparable because of it. However, I also understand that your husband wants his daughter to be comfortable in the house, and you also want your stepdaughter to be comfortable. It is a tough situation, and I hope you guys can find a middle ground. Your recently married husband threatened divorce over the fact that your child, who is not long to be an adult, won't learn a language to be able to easily communicate with his child, which would presumably only be relevant for a few more years anyway. There's a dynamic issue at play here that there isn't enough info on that would almost certainly shift things one way or the other. But for the fact that you are willing to kick your own child out of her home, even if you were to pay for the alternative accommodation, on the basis of your husband's over-the-top threat, YTA for leaving your stepdaughter in the care of someone she can't communicate with. Also, your daughter has been clear that she doesn't want to have a relationship with her, so she should never been a choice for a babysitter. YTA, are you prepared to lose your daughter over this? Is she still allowed to visit, or will that not be allowed either? YTA, I don't understand parents who force their children to accept people they clearly have expressed dislike for. Is your daughter immature and being selfish? Yes. But she's 17 and feels like her only living parent is prioritizing her stepdaughter and new husband over her. And frankly, you throwing ultimatums like, leave the home unless, is just reinforcing that. Your husband is also tough for throwing an ultimatum with regards to the relationship to your daughter. He absolutely should put his kids' comfort first, but should have thought of that before he married you, knowing your daughter had issues with the situation. Has anyone considered that since the teenager is being paid, that if they don't like how she babysits, they see and simply pay another babysitter who does know how to communicate better? The family dynamics here are worth doing some individual and family counseling. However, if the concern is over the babysitting, just get a better babysitter, and if the 17-yo ask you why, then you explain honesty why. Info. Why wasn't all this discussed before you and your husband moved in together or even married each other? How long did your daughter know them before they moved in? Info. Are you going to pay her what a certified ASL sitter makes? I'm not sure how you expected this to turn out. Your daughter never liked your now husband and now SD. That was clear from before you got married. And you decided not to resolve the issue but just marry him and force your daughter to come along for the ride. And now the ride isn't going to smooth, and you're having to force your daughter to have communicate with your SD, which she clearly never wanted. Now, I'm not saying your daughter is in the right, but it certainly seems like perhaps before the wedding the two adults in the situation should have made sure that these kinks were ironed out, so their own children wouldn't have to live in a hostile environment.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.